Hello, welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports. Fun, I think first real video we've done surrounding PWHL Seattle since well ever actually. Um, I was gonna say since Takeover Tour, but those were just like reactions to Takeover Tour. Um, I am here with Lydia Murray, if I got that correct.
Yes.
At one point, for some reason, I thought it was Murphy, and I was like, "There's no PH in there."
I've gotten that
Lydia's
my
great.
entire life. So,
Oh my God. Uh, yeah, people, my last name's Hamaker. They call me Haymaker. Like it's the last
I
name thing.
that way too,
Lydia's
so
great.
a couple times.
I've been following Lydia for a little bit, really since the PWHL started. Um, before Seattle, there was any idea that Seattle would really get a team, anything of that nature. I kind of just naturally gravitated to Boston, because of the colors and Hilary Knight, which is funny considering the news we'll talk about. But no, Lydia's been great doing stuff at the Ice Garden. PHWA member, just recently graduated from Boston University, if I'm correct.
Correct.
So, um, great follow. I mean, outside of just, what we're going to talk about today, some of the, if I remember them correctly, some of the like league power rankings were some of my favorite to see, and how you guys made that super unique, you know. So, um, I've brought Lydia in today to talk about, primarily the players that Boston has left exposed, who they protected, the decisions that were made there. We'll look at that. We'll look a little bit at Meghan Turner, Seattle's general manager that came from Boston. Um, and then maybe some thoughts on what the rest of the league did, because it's very interesting to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's always a really key thing to look at anytime expansion comes out. Everyone else is wondering, what the hell is your team doing? Um,
Yeah.
so thank you for coming on, first of all.
Thank you for
Second,
having me.
yeah, no, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what we do. Hopefully, at least with what we're trying to do, I'm trying to do post games for things. So obviously, it'll be fun to see the Seattle Boston matchups. I know there is some history between the two cities and other sports. So, excited to get that going. Um, and we'll see. Maybe because of what Meghan Turner will do and who she'll draft, she'll create, a little bit of um anger from Boston fans, because I'm sure there will be some really good players taken.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen some opinions so far. Not the greatest ones.
like before we look at that, I guess just I know it's not there isn't always a ton of it with some leaks, right? Like we were kind of talking about off camera, there's little information, right? So I'm not expecting you to have the entire book on Megan Turner, but I guess what do you know about Megan Turner, and what do you think about her taking the Seattle job?
Uh, so to be totally honest, we've discussed most of what I know about Turner has come from that initial press conference that was just a couple days ago. It's Boston GM's like we haven't really had much interaction with him as a media contingent. But I would expect her to be pretty similar to Danielle Marmor. She spoke very highly of her completely unprompted on that presser, so I imagine she's going to take right after her. Um, so look for Seattle. They're going to be a physical team. They're going to be fast, and they're going to really emphasize leadership and a good culture. That's extremely important to her. And even if that hadn't come out of her mouth, I would have assumed that just because based on her background, I think Seattle's getting a hell of a GM. She seems like she really knows what she's doing and she really cares. That was also abundantly clear through the press conference. Is just seeing her talk about how much she wanted to get in the community. It wasn't just about being here, building the team, winning games. She really wants this to be a movement. And so I think Seattle's fans should be really excited to see her at the helm. I'm excited to see what she does.
It was really interesting, looking into her, because I'm like, okay, who is this? Right. It was interesting again because of the Boston thing that it was someone from the fleet. Um, but it was interesting reading, the praise that Marmer had for her, just saying, I fully feel like she will take my job someday. Uh, didn't happen here.
Yeah.
Similar, right? But the confidence to say, I believe it was earlier in this season. Oh wait, no, technically the finals happened. So I can say last season. I don't know. It's always.
Yeah.
fun how you put that, right? But during the second season of the league, about how, Marmer thought that Turner had the capability to be a GM in the NHL, which obviously would be a big thing as well. But so yeah, I mean, praise like that's pretty good, right? And
Yeah.
especially considering that those two had a pretty good relationship from what I understand. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
mean,
I mean, oh
not
no,
to interrupt,
absolutely.
but like it's not every day that you see the GM and the AGM speak so highly of each other unprompted. Because you look at the other five teams, it's not to say that they have bad relationships at all. Like I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. But both Marmer and Turner, since this, have gone out of their way to speak highly of each other, and I think that just shows it goes to show so much about their character individually. And I think in a league like this, as new as it still is, I mean, you got brand new franchises, you need to have someone with that really high character. And so yeah, I think Turner's gonna do great here.
Yeah, and I mean, no worries at all on, there not being the biggest book on her. I was just excited. You mentioned the availability that we had with her and Kara Gardner Mori, if I'm correct. It was interesting to hear that, but I was like, I just want to get and as you mentioned, I don't know how much availability that we'll have with her. I know whenever like Kraken wise with Ron Francis, we spoke to him like it felt like once every few months, if that,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but I'm like, hey, I want to hear from you, front and center on some of these things, and I'm sure with it being an inaugural season, we will. Um, but yeah, it's not like there's a ton of information always on assistant general managers anyway.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, no struggle on that. I mean, good first impression though, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So um now we get to the thing that is obviously going to dominate uh online today with the protected list. I know you and I had been talking about this for a little bit. Getting ready to do what we're doing right now. Um, and I know there's an elephant in the room, a legendary sized elephant in the room about someone who was unprotected. But I guess, are you surprised at the three players that Boston protected in Frankel, Keller, and Mueller? I mean, like Frankel, I figured made sense. I just figured there's no way you're letting your green monster go away.
Not a chance.
Um, but yeah, any thoughts on just those three? Because it kind of it makes sense, but obviously there's some shock in what's left over.
Yeah, I both am and am not surprised by it. Frankel was an absolute no-brainer. Keller wasn't far behind her there. The Fleet's decor, uh, Keller is far and away their best defender. Up front, like I went back and forth in my predictive predictions. I had Hilary Knight. I just, I mean, she's a legend of the game. She's still one of the best players in it, but she is older. Like at the end of the day, she only has a couple seasons left at best, and it may just be one. So I get not sacrificing the entire future. I mean, no matter what, this was going to hurt the fleet. They were going to lose two of their best forwards, regardless of how you shook it out. And so I understand why Marmer went with Alina Mueller, because she is their next best forward. Letting her walk for nothing would have been painful now and in the future. Whereas Knight, it's just painful now. So it's always going to be surprising when a name like Hilary Knight is not protected because she's Hilary Knight. But I get it. I was a little surprised by some other protections, other teams, but
Oh yeah, no, we'll certainly get to that. But yeah, no, I mean, again, I don't know as much as you do, right? But someone who watched a lot of Fleet games, like, I mean, anyone who watched the PWHL, I feel like knew the caliber of goaltender that Aaron Frankel is. So it's just like, it was like, hey, if Boston decides to say no, then let's go. Let's get
yeah,
going. Like, you can
yeah,
keep the same kind of color scheme in a way with
yeah.
the pads. Like, it's, you know, um,
No, I would argue Frankel's the best goaltender in the world right now. I think she's better than
hard to
Amber
disagree with
Adrian.
that.
It's not very, not by much, but I do think she is better right now, and the Fleet simply go nowhere without her. And that's evidenced by, like, look at the last games of the season when she was hurt. Clara Peslarova did not play poorly. In fact, she played extremely well, and she is so far from the reason the Fleet missed the playoffs. But I think there's just something that changes within the team dynamic when they're playing in front of any other goalie. There's just something about Frankel that calms them right down because they know she's going to make some crazy save if they make a bad mistake. So there was just there was no chance. Like there she was going to be protected even if they could only protect one player. It would have been her.
Yeah, well, and at least with Keller, right? Some of the stuff I'd seen around the league was, an emphasis in some of the players. Sorry, some of the teams with your more elite D, trying to protect them, right? Because it feels like maybe that's a position where if you've got elite D, you're going to want to keep it. If I'm, getting that right. So I mean, that's not surprising, right? Just knowing who Megan Keller is
Yeah.
that seemed like um
Yeah, Elite
something
D
that
are a
was
lot
pretty
harder to
clear.
come by in this league than Elite forwards. They take a little longer to develop. And transition is so important in this league. Like it's crazy to me how important it is because you just haven't seen anything like it. The international game, it's the US and Canada. They're light years above the rest, so uh, having that really quick transition isn't that important in a lot of the games. It's a big part of it, but it's just not like it is in the PWHL. So you don't let a player like her go. I think she replaces Knight as the captain. She's a great leader, excellent player. She was again always going to be protected. I would have been beyond stunned if they let her go.
Well, and then so with that last spot, right? With I like, you know, it's been really fun to watch Elena Mueller, um, you know, in a fleet jersey, but just seeing obviously talking about Hillary. Is it surprising it to you at all to see any of the other names um, in this unprotected list? I mean, just it's just wild to see some of like a Jamie Lee Rattray, um, Hannah Bilka's one that some people I talked to around here were interested in. Like, is there any thought in your mind that that third spot would have been someone other than Mueller or Knight, or is it just it would have been those two for that third spot?
I thought it was always going to be those two because, well, Bilka's an excellent player and she will be a huge asset to whichever team grabs her because she will be selected. I would be shocked if she isn't. I just Mueller's more ready now. She's more adjusted to the PWHL. She is a natural center, which the Fleet are seriously lacking. The high-end centers, and they're not even playing her at center for reasons I can't explain. Um, but yeah, I always thought it was going to be between Mueller and Knight because it hurts to lose Bilka, but she's a little more replaceable in the sense that she's that speedy, crafty winger that there's a whole bunch of them that will come through. Deeply unfortunate to lose her, but she's just not at the same level of impact as Knight and Mueller are right now.
Now, I'm sure you've done this already. I feel like I've read a few of your pieces where you've done this, but I need you to talk even more about Hilary Knight because now that this is officially a possibility, it's pretty remarkable, right? I remember we didn't talk to her out here for Takeover Tour. Um, obviously a busy, well, no, there was sorry, I lied. There was the Zoom before they came out here. I do remember that, but that was kind of, things are happening here. Uh, you never know. This is part of me being all these places and stuff happening. Yeah, obviously hearing the things that she's had to say about Seattle on two different occasions, because the one time I did speak with her was the rivalry series game here at Climate Pledge, and it was just wild because it was me and two other reporters, and then Hilary Knight. Like I feel like that's never gonna happen again. Um, I don't know, just the things that you've seen from her, because obviously she's announced she's done with international play, right? And wants to chase a Walter Cup. Uh, Obviously, it doesn't seem like that's going to be in Boston. I feel like that, not to use a nautical term, but I feel like the ship has sailed in a way in that regard, considering that she's unprotected, right? I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, there's a possibility. Um, just yeah, any poetic you can wax about the Hillary Knight, because obviously this is going to be a big deal if this is something that comes to fruition. Obviously, again, it feels interesting covering this expansion draft because I'm just focused on Seattle, but also acknowledging that Vancouver is staking this as well.
Yeah, I mean Hillary Knight again, she's just a legend. And it's for good reason. She's one of the most decorated players to ever lace up the skates. She leads Team USA's scoring categories in the World Championships. Like, she's just one of the best players to ever do it. She is a Hall of Famer. Um, to see her exposed again, it speaks to how wild this expansion draft is, that a player like that gets left up for grabs. If Seattle selects her, and I do think that there's a good chance that Seattle will look to get her in the signing window, because I imagine just with how highly she has spoken of Seattle, I mean, even I talked with her one-on-one back during the season, and I asked her like, what was your favorite takeover tour game, and she didn't hesitate very much to say Seattle. She loves the environment and the like how big of a women's sports city it is, and yeah, it's very clear that out of the two spots she would prefer to go to Seattle, and if Turner's willing to sign her, I imagine she goes. And I don't know why Turner wouldn't be willing to sign her. Um, Both with the fleet connections, how high, like how much Turner emphasized, like, we want really good leaders in this room. We want a strong culture. And that's what I spoke with Knight about is how much she prioritized setting that for the fleet. She wants to make sure that it's a place that players want to come, where they're gonna have fun, they're gonna work hard, and they're gonna have success. Um, so there's really, out of everyone available, no better leader, in my opinion. Um, she's kind of the whole package. The only wrench in it is you really don't know how much longer she's going to play. Turner might. Um, there could have been like I imagine Turner was part of the exit interviews, and I do wonder because Knight has announced like the 2026 Olympics will be her last. And that didn't surprise anyone given she's 35. Um, but I wonder if she left the door open that she would continue to play in the PWHL beyond next season, but perhaps she's leaning more towards no, and that's why she was left exposed. Because I feel like if she had told Danielle Marmer that like she was going to be around 2 or 3 more seasons, she'd be a lot more likely to keep her. But if it's just one more season, she will. I still think that she's going to be one of the first players taken in this draft, just because even if it is one season of Hilary Knight, she is well worth your pick. Name recognition alone, she will get people in the seats, especially in Seattle. Um, so I just think like if whoever gets her, but I assume it will be Seattle, is just getting one heck of a player, one heck of a person, and it's going to be a really good way to start the franchise, even if it means Fleet
Yeah.
fans hate him.
Hey, I mean, there's already a few Seattle Boston things. I
You gotta
mean,
have some
you
hatred
know,
somewhere.
see, unrelated to what we're talking about here. Like again, I followed Lydia for a bit, talking to Lydia, like learning writer to writer. I'm like, this is awesome. Like just hearing how she operates. It's like that stupid joke. I'm a big fan of how you operate. That's how I feel about learning about Lydia lately as we get to do this. So, but yeah, I mean, that is something that's interesting to take into consideration because I think one of the big things, and I think I mentioned it to you 2 days ago, um, with this expansion draft, I kind of likened with Hilary Knight, Megan Rapinoe, lately the NWSL, National Women's Soccer League, the Reign have been involved in a few expansion drafts as that league has grown. With the California teams that they've added in the last few years. And Megan Rapinoe and some of their originals were left unprotected. And I said, oh, shit. Because obviously, I mean, they're older players, right? But they're still massive contributors to the club. Even this year, just Fishlock and Lou Barnes are still massive contributors, even though Lou Barnes has played the most minutes in the league's history. Just Fishlock's one of the most legendary women's players of all time, and she's most likely going to retire after this season. Um, so I thought it was like a Megan Rapinoe thing where the understanding was, hey, she's playing a few years like after this, like, and she doesn't want to leave Seattle. Like, that's what I've kind of thought maybe because again, you hear all these great things as you mentioned, the way that Hillary Knight's talked about Seattle, and obviously it's very exciting. You see the possibility that she's exposed, and but you do like it is a little not sobering, but kind of hit with reality. Hey, maybe it is as you mentioned, one season, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's where I thought it might be, but and yeah, I don't know when we'll know about that. It's like I don't know when Hillary would come out and say, "Hey, I'm doing this," because does she like maybe she doesn't know. right?
That's the sense I was getting because again, like she announced her Olympic retirement well in advance because she knew for sure. She's not someone who likes a lot of questions about herself. She'll deflect them as much as she can. So I truly don't think she knows at this moment, but I assume she's leaning in one direction, and that's probably what she told GM Danielle Marmer or anyone. Like she's got to be leaning one way or the other, but just doesn't want to make that official decision. I do wonder if expansion will make that decision for her. Um, you know, it's tough because like you bring up Megan Rapinoe, and there could be an element of that too. There could be like the teams leave her be in Boston because she is Hilary Knight. She should finish where she chose to, but at the same time, where she does love Seattle, that's closer to her family. It's not necessarily a bad thing for her to go to Seattle. I don't think she'd be mad about it, even though I know she didn't ask for it. I was able to confirm that because that was a question. I'm like, did she want to go? Like, no. Um, but I think she would be understanding of the situation. Um, but it's tough because like a big reason why I spoke to her one-on-one is I wanted to talk to her about the difference between this season and last because she did struggle in the inaugural year. Part of that was an injury, part of that was the pressure she felt trying to set the course for this franchise, knowing that she was one of the faces of the league. And she took so much on herself to make sure that everything went perfectly. When it didn't, it put a lot of pressure on her. And so now she's gonna go, if she gets selected, she's gonna go do that again. I don't, it's a tough situation no matter how you slice it, but I do ultimately think she would be selected.
Yeah, and that comes back to not necessarily a sobering reality, but the fact that it's exciting and the possibility of it is exciting. But there could be challenges, as you mentioned, right? I mean, certainly you want to talk about as Meghan Turner mentioned, leadership and establishing that. It's a great way to do. I don't know how many other leaders you're going to find out there in this situation that would be better. Um, yeah, I mean it's something to talk about. It's something to because that is reality. There's not a lot of guarantees with her situation right now, right? So I mean, still exciting, but
Yeah.
certainly more to think about than just, hey, she's on the team now. Like
Yeah, it's a
there will
very
be questions.
layered thing. Um, I don't envy anyone making any of these decisions. I'm glad I just have to talk about them.
That is it's like how I feel with the Kraken off season, like the amount of cap space they have in the draft picks. I mean, obviously they're not very good. That's why I was thinking about this today, Lydia. I was like, so Seattle's PWHL team like has a I feel like a growing like the odds on favorite to make the playoffs over the Kraken this year just because of this.
Yeah,
It's
because of the
hey, I'll take
insane
it.
expansion draft.
Oh, yeah, no, just with how wild that is. So yeah, I do want to have your thoughts on the because again I know Fleet's kind of your primary thing, right? But obviously you have tabs on the rest of the league and you have thoughts on the rest of the league, as
Oh,
you and I
yes.
know. Is there anything fleet wise that maybe didn't get mentioned or brought up? Because obviously, again, Hilary Knight was a big one, and a lot of fans here, saw. I think Ian Kennedy's report, and everyone was basically pop streamers at that point.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it is interesting to me to see some of those names. I mean, again, I've really enjoyed watching Aaron Frankel play. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but Seattle will have, I think, it's some pretty damn good goalies throughout the rest of it. Is there anything Boston wise maybe you think should be mentioned?
A player I would keep an eye on is Clara Peslarova. Um, I think especially with the Meghan Turner connection, there's a good chance she ends up out west. If she stays in the PWHL, which I'm guessing she will. I do know that no matter what, she wants to play, especially in an Olympic year, so she won't be signing to be a third goalie. Um, but I think if you're looking at available goalies, she may not go in the expansion draft. If she does, it'll be in the back half because nobody's using a first half pick on a free agent signing. It's just not happening. That would be quite shocking. Um, but keep an eye on her as the backup goalie in Seattle. She could arguably be a starter, but both teams will select their starters in the first round. I mean, Corrine Schroeder and Emirates Smashmeyer are stars. You know what you're getting with them, and they're both available, so they're gonna go. But Peslarova is a star in her own right. I mean, like I said, she didn't get to play much with the Fleet, but she was outstanding when she did, and she's been so good for Czechia lately that she deserves a shot at more playing time. And if she wants to go out west, I think Seattle has a bit of an edge over Vancouver in that. Just because there's familiarity and like there might be a little bit more trust knowing be like, all right, I'm signing you to be the backup. Unless you play poorly, you will get games. Versus you might be the backup, but you're also gonna have to compete for it in camp. Obviously everyone's gotta compete in camp, but like there's tiers. You know going into camp, all right, this is gonna be my starter, likely my backup, likely my third. Someone would have to wow me to make a change. So yeah, I would keep an eye on her. Outside of them, I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of surprises from the fleet. One player I always like to mention is Emily Brown because I think she's an outstanding defender and she doesn't get enough credit for what she brings. She's not going to contribute much offense, but every team needs a good shutdown defender, and that's her. And she does it without taking a lot of penalties, which has always been so impressive to me because she's a physical player, but she does a remarkable job of keeping within the line. So, in the second half of the draft, if she's available, if the Fleet don't protect her with their fourth pick, definitely someone to look at.
I guess that actually brings me a question. Who do you think that fourth protection would be? Do you have an idea? I mean, would it like a bill could come up there?
If Knight or Bilka is somehow still on the board, it will absolutely be them. Um, I would be very surprised if it isn't, unless, although, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that if Knight's still available after the first half, she might not get selected. Um, but if I had to say right now, assuming that those guys are off the board, I would probably go with the Daniela Pechova. Um, she wasn't what the fleet wanted her to be this year. Part of that was she was injured in training camp, so she had a bit of a slower start, and then she kind of lost her spot in the lineup, and then she was bounced around. So it was a whole mess with her, really. But they did trade up in the draft for her for a reason. She's a young, highly skilled defender with a really high ceiling, and I feel like the fleet will want to protect someone like that instead of losing their top two picks in last year's draft for free. That would be a little bit painful. So I would keep an eye on her. Um, Maybe, like I said, maybe Emily Brown if they want to preserve their shutdown D. Jamie Lee Rattray kind of popped into my mind, but I'm like, I don't think anybody would take her on that contract. It's just she's a high paid player and her production doesn't quite match it, even if her leadership is excellent. She'd be a good energy presence. There's enough good leaders on the board that I don't think anybody would touch that deal. So I don't think the fleet would go that way, but maybe. There have been more surprising picks made, so
Yeah, Rattray was a name that was interesting to me just because, I mean, honest, I got a one-on-one during the practice day of the Takeover Tour, and she was an absolute joy to speak with.
yeah,
Um,
she's
so
lovely to talk to.
that was one where I was like, but yeah, considering contract wise. So yes, now I get to wonder maybe you can uh provide some more thoughts on what the rest of the league did because there was always going to be some shocks. Obviously, Knight is a big one. I mean, maybe you can factor in age, but still wild to see Sarah Nurse out there, right? I mean, just and then there's obviously New York, who you seem to have some thoughts about. So yeah, I'm happy to hear what you're thinking about, the rest of these lists, just because this is a big deal. There's so much talent in this league, and as you talked about, it's just gonna hurt for I feel like every single team.
Yeah, every single team is going to be losing a star. There's no way to avoid that. I don't. New York stands out as by far the most shocking list to me. I did not see them protecting Micah Zandy Hart over Alex Carpenter. Zandy Hart she's a great leader. I have no doubt in that. She's a great defender. But she is also on a very expensive contract, and there are better defenders available for less money. Um, she wasn't, in my eyes, a risk to be taken in that first half of the draft, given what else New York has available. Like a Jesse Eldridge or Corinne Schroeder. I felt like those were going to be the two to go. Now it's going to be Alex Carpenter. She may be the first pick in the draft. She is that good, and she's 31 years old. So she's got several good years ahead of her, and I don't understand why they left her exposed. I think it was a bad idea to willingly lose a player like that unless, like, she flat out said, I'm not coming back next year. Like, I'm done. I'm leaving in free agency. Then sure, I guess, but still trade her. Get something back for her. She's one of the best playmakers in the game. She can elevate her line mates. She doesn't need to play with good line mates to be successful, as she's proven. Yeah, I mean, any team is going to be absolutely so lucky to have her. They got to be licking their chops right now, seeing her on that list, going, "There's no way like, we can go select Alex Carpenter." And she's also like something I think is gonna fly under the radar a little bit. She has experience trying to bring exposure to new franchises. She played over in China during these CWHL days, so like you have that element, and it's like you've got all these different things that make her just the perfect selection for an expansion team. So I'm like, I was I was stunned when I saw that. Um, and then in Toronto too, to see Sarah Nurse on that list. I had been wondering if they would protect Blair Turnbull. Yeah, the protection isn't there, but they love her in that locker room. And she does, like, she scores somewhat, and she just brings so many other things to the table that I'm like, maybe. I don't know if I would have done it at the expense of Sarah Nurse. Um, Again, I'm not sure Turnbull would have been selected in that first half of the draft before you could have protected her. Um, there's better players available on smaller contracts. So that was an interesting one to me too.
It's just like even before the possibility of a night, or obviously not Nurse is a possibility. Um, Still wild to think about either of those two. Um, like it was just the idea. Well, not even just an idea. Like the league made it clear that they wanted these two teams to be competitive right away, right? Like hearing that from Shear and Heffert, like I was like, oh, neat, okay. Because I know that's not a common thing with expansion teams, right? So I was just going to ask you, is it's way too early. We haven't even gotten through the expansion draft yet. But do you have any thoughts on I would say Seattle, because that's all I care about, really. Again, Vancouver will be annoying. I'm excited for that rivalry. But do you have any thoughts on the potential of what Seattle could be? Because obviously, there's a lot of talent available, and players don't necessarily gel right away, right? I mean, that's obvious with expansion teams and expansion franchises, but do you have any thoughts on what Seattle could look like their season? Because, it is still a smaller league, right? I mean, it goes up to eight, um, you know, and teams will have to reshuffle, and maybe it'll be good for some of these teams to reshuffle. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's way too early. But do you have any thoughts on what this will look like, potentially for Seattle? Because again, it seems like they're going to be able to build a really competitive roster right away, and that's not including the entry draft.
Yeah, I mean, both expansion franchises are going to be competitive for the playoffs. They could easily make it, but they're gonna be right there battling until the end. I would be really shocked if they weren't. Because another benefit of these expansion franchises is like you look at the original six. Five of the six have been in the running on the last day of the season both years. The Sirens really weren't eliminated that far before them, even though it was pretty clear from both seasons a while back that they weren't going to make the playoffs. It would have taken a miracle. But now both GMs can look at what those original six teams did, how they built those teams, find the mistakes, and don't make those mistakes. Um, Emphasize culture, emphasize getting your good decor, and not just kind of picking up scraps at the end. And then your forwards, again, like there's so many elite forwards in the game right now that that's never much of a concern, even if the fleet, like I know very well that they struggle to score. Um, which is always surprising because it's like you shouldn't be struggling to score right now. Look at that talent. Um, what's wrong? Maybe this will help. They're getting picked apart. But I just think both franchises are going to build competitive rosters. Both GMs seem to really know what they're doing. And I think up in Vancouver, Kara Gardner Murray having the experience as a coach is going to be a really big benefit too, It's like, all right, you really know what it takes to make a good team because you've been the one recruiting for 14 years trying to build your team. So I think she's like she will do well there too. But yeah, I would be very surprised if these both clubs were not right in the running for the playoffs, if not making them.
It's, I think, no matter what, because obviously the point of us here is to look at the possibilities, right? No matter what, it's exciting. Obviously it's not going to be very fun for any of the original six uh to lose that amount of talent, but it's always cool to me, at least. Like, that was how I told myself, with the rain. I would say the Storm, because they were involved in Golden State's expansion draft this past offseason, but no one was taken from Seattle. And that was very fascinating, and I'm sure they'll have to deal with it again when Portland and Toronto come into the league. I don't know. It's just exciting to have this, and you know, like, ever since that takeover tour game, it felt like that was a possibility. Just knowing the market here, right? Knowing the resources intact. I mean, again, it's not like the building, and this has been said since the announcement became official. I say official because you know I remember you co-tweeted our stuff too on that.
It
Um,
was an open
you know,
secret for a little while.
yeah.
I was never able to confirm it like on the record, but you knew.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, and it's fun. So, oh yeah, the facilities that I can't speak too much for Vancouver, but it sounds like there's, everything I've understood from Vancouver is that they are happy there. But like, Climate Pledge Arena is a beautiful building, is an absolutely beautiful building. Knowing what it was before, like, it really is great. And same with the Kraken Community Iceplex. Like, so it's a really fun time. So I'm sure you and I will talk again because
Yeah,
there are players to be selected, and some of these players, Seattle fans will want to be like, "Hey, who the hell is this?" Like,
yeah.
you know. So, but yeah, no, I mean, um, if there's anything that you want to plug, I know I mentioned, the Ice Garden, right? Like, yes, if I remember that
Yes,
properly. Okay,
yes,
last thing I want to do is say something wrong
yeah.
and be like, "Oh yeah, go check this out." That's not a thing. Anything else that you want to put out there? Because again, like, as I said, it's been really fun to, I'm not a super, you know, detailed person with the PWHL, so it's been fun to watch some of the, like, you know, I feel like smaller per se. And it's not supposedly a dig, but again, with the NHL, it feels like there's all this mainstream coverage.
Yeah.
ESPN, there isn't that for the PWHL, so it's kind of nicer to be able to say, hey, I can actually directly support these people on a ground level who are there, doing stuff like this. And that's how I found you. So, I mean, if there's anything that you want to put out there, if there's anything, that we didn't cover, feel free.
If you're listening, please subscribe to the Ice Garden. We're fully subscriber run. We can't do it without you, so please, I'm begging. But also sorry. As we said at the beginning, I just graduated college, so I am still in the hunt for a full-time job. Hire me, please. Or freelance, anything, really. I don't want to say I'm desperate, but the job market's not fun right now. So yeah, anyone important, like anybody but any sort of power listening, there's that. But otherwise, just if you're thinking about following the Seattle team, it's well worth your time. This league is so exciting. I love covering it. I feel very, very lucky I've been able to do it for 2 years. And if all goes well, I'll be back next season. So just invest in this team, invest in this league, make it successful, and then like this league will continue to grow. The players will continue to get better resources. Hopefully a US TV deal comes along soon. That would be really helpful. Um, Kind of wondering if it happens this offseason now with another US team, but just anything you can do to promote, bring your friends. I've spoken to so many Fleet season ticket holders that drag their friends to like one game and then they become season ticket holders. Like it's just the power of this sport is so huge that if you can just get yourself and other people into the seats, good things happen. So,
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the first things when the announcement became official. People were like, how do I support it? I'm like, well, I could go to the games. Like, that's the
yeah.
obviously there are other ways. Like, I told him, I was like, well, if you can't do that, then purchase merch, stuff like that. So yeah, no, again, I feel like I do have a lot of respect for Lydia. So I feel like you'll see it. We'll probably do something like this again. Like I feel
Yeah,
like,
no,
you know,
we
and
appreciate
hearing
all
the
of
freelance thing, I'm like, well, I'll look into that.
it.
So we'll see. Um, I don't know about full because obviously across the country is a little difficult, but
Yeah.
we'll work on it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's all very exciting. I mean, even then, like I say this, and there's no real gap because the signing window starts tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. We could learn some of the stuff that we like hypothesized or thought could think could happen tomorrow. So
Yeah. I can't quite decide if I think the signing window is going to be active or not. I,
that's
it won't
what
be, yeah, like it won't be active with free agents because there's no free agent out there worth losing a first round pick on. The only one that I had repeatedly said was if New York could expose Sarah Fillier. And that's because she was a restricted free agent. She would have been worth it. But
can
there's
you
really no.
imagine?
It could have. They exposed Carpenter. Like crazy things happen
I,
apparently.
yeah. Oh no, that's why I always say you never know because then I've already said that word. Shit like this happens today, right? Like, yeah. So, shoot, they
But
put
that's
this in here.
yeah. There's plenty of good players out there that I think would be worth it if a team really values them to not risk losing them in the draft to the other team. Like Alex Carpenter, Erin Ambrose out of Montreal. She's I argue she's the best all around defender in the game because like you look at someone in Toronto like Renata Fast, and no doubt she's an incredibly impactful player, but she lands herself in the box a lot. That kind of hurts her defensive impact. So whereas Ambrose, she just doesn't. She's a very clean player, but she could do it all. Yeah, so players like that and that are also because like the ones we've named like Knight, Carpenter, Ambrose, they're all outstanding leaders. They could all potentially wear a C for these teams. And I feel like if anything, people are like these teams are gonna go get their captains first, just to make sure be like, all right, we really have a core player to build around instead of playing game of chicken in the draft, being like, can I get you in like the pick three, or do I have to grab you now? Um, so it's gonna be
That
quite fun to watch this unfold.
that inspires me. Maybe I should get a Hilary Knight jersey swap ready with
Yeah,
with this. See,
had to grab
um,
it. Yeah.
yeah. It's sorry, I was looking at the dates to like make sure I have everything listed. It's pretty wild. I forgot that the expansion draft is on a Monday. Uh,
Yeah.
okay.
And like I understand
Um,
why it's 8:30 Eastern because it needs to be at a reasonable time Pacific, but 8:30 Eastern on a Monday is a choice when five of your teams are in Eastern time.
yeah. It. I, without getting too much into it, there's a lot of choices that are being made lately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
signing
leave it at that.
window.
But yeah.
Signing window opens tomorrow, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. So I'll be up early just in case because and ends on June 8th, 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, expansion draft as mentioned. The 9th, I will figure out what I'm trying to do for that. So yeah, well, till I see you next time, take care of yourself, be well, do whatever you can to make today a great day. Hey everybody, Charles Hamaker here from Circling Seattle Sports with
Jen Barnes from Rough and Tumble.
Jen. What is Rough and Tumble for Circling Seattle Sports?
Your home. The home for Circling Seattle Sports.
I like it. Let's do one more take, just a little bit.
Hey there everybody, Charles Hamaker here from Circling Seattle Sports with
Jen Barnes from Rough and Tumble.
Jen. Where's the home of Circling Seattle Sports?
Right here at Rough and Tumble.
Hi, Charles Hamaker here from Circling Seattle Sports with
Jen Barnes from Rough and Tumble.
glad to join you here from Rough and Tumble, home of Circling Seattle Sports.
I love
Okay.
up, not out, Chuck. Okay, I'm ready.
Hello everybody, Charles Hamaker here from Circling Seattle Sports with
Jen Barnes from Rough and Tumble. Start over.
I forgot what I was saying.
I think you waved in the first one.
We did at the
Yeah.
end.
Oh, at the end. Okay, that's what it was. Okay, cool.
You just couldn't see our hands.
And now it looks like you're holding your hands, so that's kind of weird.
Here's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually have a little room to come this way, too.
Okay.
Just no further than that.
Yes, Lieutenant Dan.
And go.
Oh, I think this time I'll ask you, what's the home? Where?
Yeah, say, where's the home of Circling Seattle Sports?
Okay.
And I'll be like, right here at Rough and Tumble.
Hand good.
Yeah.
Yeah, your other hand, put your fingers together just a little bit more. Not like that. There you go. It was just like,
Clawing at me.
okay, I'm still recording, so go ahead.
Okay.
Start when you're ready.